Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. As we get closer and closer to the official end of at least the regular season, we're getting more and more noise about what a potential head coach search for the Cleveland Browns could look like, and noise about if the Browns are going to embark on a potential head coach search. Again, I'm going to do a video on this that I recorded yesterday that's going to drop tomorrow about why it is that I think there's just way too much smoke out there for me not to believe that Kevin's going to get fired at the end of the year. But there's just like more stuff approaching as each day goes forward that tells you that Kevin's position is just kind of not as secure as he wants. And one of those things that came out was Jeremy Fowler out of nowhere mentioned how great of a fit Kevin Stefanski would be for the New York Giants job, and how he would be a finalist, if not the favorite to land that job if he were to be let go from the Cleveland Browns. It's kind of a follow-up on the idea that, hey, if Kevin loses his job, he will be picked up immediately. And I got a lot of thoughts about Kevin's fit in New York and the kind of situations I could see Kevin thriving in and all of that. But another report came out. Again, these are all trusted source reports that the Browns would be interested in Mike McDaniel, the current head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And it is important to note, right? There was the Dolphins team that we played when we saw the Dolphins and they were at their absolute lowest. But they turned it around towards the end of the season and actually won more games than I think people anticipated them winning. That being said, obviously, there's a lot of concerns that pop up when you talk about bringing in Mike McDaniel and, you know, all the baggage that comes with his kind of personality and how people feel about his personality. All that stuff it is going to be something to talk about. But that's what we're going to spend today talking about, those two rumors and how they affect the Cleveland Browns. But real quick, let me thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code Worst Take. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. So let's talk about Kevin Stefanski going to New York. Very interesting possibility for a number of reasons, right? The first reason that jumps out to me is this would be the second time that Kevin Stefanski kind of gets into a position where he's inheriting a quarterback and possibly a team culture that couldn't be the more opposite of what he naturally brings to the table and what he prefers leadership to look like, right? This happened in his first stint in Cleveland, and to be fair to Kevin, did a good job managing it, right? Like, again, I know that since we're at the end of Kevin Stefanski, it's going to be real easy for people to revise the history on Kevin's run here in Cleveland and act like he was never good and trash every single accomplishment he ever did. And yeah, that becomes very easy. But the truth is that Kevin had really good moments in Cleveland. And I think one of his best moments was him being able to mend what was a broken 2019 locker room, right? Like, I think people kind of overlook in their defense of like other GMs and other coaches. They kind of overlook how much of a mess 2019 was. But the locker room was broken in 2019. It was a chaotic mess. You had Baker Mayfield arguing with press reporters in public, right? The Jesus Tony stuff, right? Baker Mayfield storming out of middle of the week press conferences, all kind of stuff that kind of made it feel like the building was on fire during the Freddie Kitchens era. It was a lot of like passionate leadership that wasn't really under control, right? Like it felt like the Browns were a dog that barked a lot, but didn't have much bite to it. So Kevin's all bite, no bark approach to leadership ended up actually being a good mix for this team. And I think they see that being something similar. Like, yeah, Cam Scadaboo's really passionate, but maybe they feel like you need to kind of tamp that in a little bit so he could be more controlled, so he could be healthier for his career. The same thing goes with somebody like a Jackson Dart, who is a very passionate guy who maybe they want to have kind of rein it in a little bit there so they can get better results from him. So from that aspect of it, right, you can initially look at Kevin's fit in New York and say, well, that doesn't make sense. But I think if we look deeper than the surface there, it starts to make a little bit more sense there. Now, how does he gel with another Baker Mayfield type personality at the quarterback position in Jackson Dart? How does he handle inheriting a quarterback again? Are there lessons that he learned from the Baker Mayfield experience that makes him better off in that Jackson Dart thing? You know, I think that's all kind of gonna have to be taken as it goes. I think as a leader in the locker room, Kevin has shown a lot of growth in 5 years. My issue with Kevin hasn't been that. It's been as a architect, he hasn't been that great. But there's also this idea of like you fire Kevin or you guys have a mutual parting of ways, and all of a sudden Kevin's a part of the decision-making crew that can decide your draft fate, right? And that could be a good thing or a bad thing. Relationships are usually a good thing for a trade, but I imagine, you know, if Kevin's fired, the relationship will be damaged on some levels. The New York Giants could be a critical trade partner for the Cleveland Browns if they're looking to move up for a quarterback. And Kevin could be a part of that decision-making process, which also I think is interesting, right? You also have the prospect of like Kevin with like a Malik Neighbors, right? Again, you know, how he handled the Odell thing. Are there going to be any differences from that to the Malik Neighbors thing? It wasn't necessarily the greatest marriage in the world between Kevin and Odell. And then also like the New York media, right? Which is a different beast than the Cleveland media, but it's not like, it's just a bigger beast in the Cleveland media, if I'm being honest with you. It's the same kind of skepticism, right? Cleveland doesn't really give its coaches in the media much benefit of the doubt. It's not like Pittsburgh where, you know, the media there is just like willing to accept any kind of bullshit that the coach throws at it. You know, there's going to be skepticism. There's going to be a lot of press. Is that something that Kevin really cares or matters with Kevin? I think for a team that's looking like, if you're just a fan of another team and you want to know the Browns' perspective on Kevin if he goes to a different team, right? If you're a fan from an outside team, you're watching this video because you want to know if your team should hire Kevin. I would say this: Kevin's strengths are that he brings stability and he is a ultra composed guy. So if your issues are that you don't feel like your team is very composed or that your team has structure, Kevin makes a lot of sense, right? Kevin makes a ton of sense for an organization that feels like they're struggling with structure, for an organization that feels like they're struggling with composure, for an organization that feels like they're struggling with those kind of things. Kevin is really good for, because he has such a stoic demeanor. He is such a calm person. And I think he is good at those things. I think he has instilled some level of respect in that locker room, right? As far as the veterans on that team, right? You got Denzel Ward going to bat for him. You got Joe Bitonio going to bat for him. Clearly, he's done a good job with that. If you're looking for an offensive genius or a architect, that's going to take the pieces that you have and double what you can normally get out of them. Kevin is not that kind of guy, right? Kevin is the exact opposite of that. I think Kevin is a average architect who needs to rely more on his offensive coordinating staff to be able to create that magic, because on his own, he's just not that good at it. But when Kevin's focused on the head coach stuff, the culture stuff, I think he is pretty solid at that stuff. But yeah, that's really like my rubric for a team that wants to bring in Kevin. For the Browns, I think that they're fine missing out on some of the extra stuff that Kevin brings to the table, but they really need an architect at this point in time, and Kevin's just not that. Which brings us to the other part of the news that came out today. Mike McDaniel to Cleveland. Now, the first question is like, would this truly be as a head coach? Or is this one of those things where because he's a head coach right now, people are assuming that the noise that they're hearing around Mike McDaniel is about Mike McDaniel becoming the head coach. But ultimately, this is about Mike McDaniel becoming the offensive coordinator if like Robert Saleh takes the job or something like that. I don't know. Here's what I will say about Mike McDaniel if he was to be brought in as the offensive leader of this team, whether he's head coach or simply just coordinator. It makes sense on paper. It makes sense in a vacuum. It makes sense in a lot of different ways, more than I think some people will want to admit, because Mike McDaniels has such a nerdy demeanor and it's not really a football guy. Like, there's a lot of Browns fans, let's face it, who want to go back to that Greg Williams aesthetic or, the Brian Flores aesthetic. They want a big buff dude who looks mean and sounds and seems like he yells at people because that makes them feel like people are being held accountable. I don't really care what the coach looks like, man. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't care what the coach looks like. I don't care if the coach is a screamy, yelly kind of guy. Like, for me, it's more about what do they bring to the table as far as their skill set goes. And look, Mike McDaniels, he is gonna fix the run game. There's no doubt about that. He's one of the best run game minds in all of football. He's also a really good wide receiver coach. He's also a really inventive passing game coordinator at times. Now, he's really struggled the last few years to create a passing offense worth a damn in Miami, and I think that's like the big question mark with Mike McDaniels. Like, what happened there? You got a lot of money invested in that offense. You didn't get a lot out that passing offense. But if we're talking about somebody who could fix the run game, yeah, Mike McDaniel would be able to do that. Is he a passing game evolver? Question mark. Also, I do think there's an interesting question as for what this means for the quarterback room, because the rumor was that there were two teams interested in taking Dillon Gabriel in the third round. They're the Cleveland Browns, and then they're the Miami Dolphins. So does bringing in Mike McDaniel reinvigorate the investment in Dillon Gabriel? And that might be uncomfortable, right? Imagine Mike McDaniel comes in here, people are already skeptical about it, and then the first thing he talks about is giving Dillon Gabriel a shot. Oh, it's going to be so unpopular, right? But if there's success on the field on Sundays, then obviously the popularity will swing in the other side of that pendulum. But yeah, Mike McDaniel to Cleveland. He wouldn't be my first choice, if I'm being honest with you. I do see the appeal of him as an offensive coordinator, but even then, I have my concerns about what he's done and what he hasn't done in the passing game over the last few years. But the run game stuff I would be encouraged by. Like, you would definitely have a more efficient year from Quincy Judkins, like, no doubt in my mind. But we'll see what happens. That's what's new around the Browns coaching situations, around Kevin Stefanski's name, and around the Cleveland Browns position. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.